Hello, Leonor, and welcome to Hera TV interview. We're very pleased to have you here today.
Well, thank you very much for asking me. It's such a privilege.
Thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? I know you are the head of the Montessori Group, of which I've had one of my sons attend the Montessori nursery, which was a very good start, and he's now currently at Eton. So it
Excellent.
shows that it was a very, very well-deserved start to start off that way. So if you
Yeah.
could tell us a bit about yourself and yes.
Okay. Yes. So I'm CEO of the Montessori Group, as you say. The Montessori Group is one of three global organizations in the world, obviously global. We have the American Montessori Society that focuses on North America. There's us, and there's AMI that's based in the Netherlands. As you said, Montessori is a great start for any child, and we're very keen to make sure that as many children as possible get that start. The reason why I'm so passionate about it is because I am the first woman in my family to actually have a career. And I put that down to the education, that I had the opportunity to have an education, which my peers didn't. My family originally from Spain, we're refugees from Spain, from Franco Spain. And my cousins who grew up in Spain, who were women, did not have for education that I had, and so have not progressed in terms in professionally in the way that I've had. So
Yes.
yeah, that makes me feel very strongly about ensuring that all children have that opportunity to have the best start in life, and that's why I think Montessori can deliver. I've spent the first third of my career in the private sector in various
Yes.
industries, academic publishing, banking, music business. I ran my own business for a while. I was a consultant, working with small to medium-sized enterprises with helping them with transformation. I co-owned an art gallery in Knightsbridge,
Oh, wow.
and then during the war in former Yugoslavia, I volunteered to work with children and women who were victims of the war. I just finished a big contract. I didn't need to work for a little while. Came to Croatia to just do what I could, really. And this is where I met my husband. So I ended up married, not what I expected to do. But when I went
Wow.
back to London, I made the decision that actually going into the not-for-profit sector as a sort of professional was what I really wanted to spend the rest of my life doing. So I did that. And have been there ever since. So that's last 26 years, 20 of those as a CEO in various organizations.
Oh, wow. What a wonderful accolade of amazing achievement for a woman.
Thank you.
And congratulations for being the first woman to achieve, I think, not probably even just in your own family, globally, to achieve such a lot of things that a lot of women haven't achieved. As
Thank
we
you.
know, Hera is a women's platform to empower women, and we celebrate people like yourselves. And can you tell us a bit of, obviously, it must have not been easy. What were the hurdles for you as a woman being in the occupying the seat you've occupied?
Well, you're right. It's not been easy. I was not only was I the first woman in my family to have a career. I, often when I started out, had no female senior leaders in any of the organisations I worked at, and so I didn't really know what being a female leader was like, because I had no role models. I had no one to look at and go, aha, that's how you do it. These are the things to think about. That's also why I'm very passionate about mentoring, because I think that I don't think younger women necessarily need to go through the experience I did, just because I went through it. And so there were times when I was the only woman sitting in a room full of men, and certainly when I attended board meetings, I was very often, apart from the person taking the minutes, and the only woman. And I'll tell you a story which I thought was quite interesting about sort of what the mentality was like. At one board meeting, we were actually discussing about, sort of diversity and bringing, this was very, very, many years ago, bringing more
Yes.
women onto the board. And one of the men on the board said, but look, there are lots of women in the room. And I turned around and said, yes, one's making the tea, one's taking the minutes, and
Oh
one's
dear.
me, so that's great. I'm participating, but the other two women aren't. Just because they're physically in the room doesn't mean that we've got a diverse board. But it was that kind of
Yes.
mentality. So that was pretty tough. And I think that also just learning, kind of finding my feet as to what female leadership meant, because I often was sort of told by older men, oh yes, but this is what you need to do if you're a leader. And I thought, that doesn't feel authentic to me. It doesn't feel the sort of
Yes.
thing that I would do, particularly as a woman. I wouldn't feel comfortable behaving in that way. It doesn't feel right to me. And so I had to sometimes really fight for my way of doing things and say, well, okay, that's how you achieve, and that's brilliant, works for you, but it wouldn't work for me. That doesn't make my way of leading any less valid than yours. It just makes it different. So there were a number of obstacles, yeah.
Yes, yes. And I was privileged to be amongst a few selected people who witnessed the unveiling of the Millicent Fawcett statue.
Fabulous.
And in Parliament, and the Prime Minister then was Theresa May, who was our second female Prime Minister, so which was a great honor to be there with my background as a politician. To see how far women have got, that it took such a long time for statues to be present and for women to be recognised in the UK, of all places, of having contributed something. So what, in your own opinion, as a woman who has achieved high accolades, would you say could be done to help women be recognised more?
Well, I think you've hit the nail on the head. We need to recognise it. We need to talk about it. We need to highlight those women that have achieved. And achievement is not just, and I speak about this a lot, achievement and status is not just how much money you earn. That is one marker of success.
Yes.
It isn't even being a CEO. That is another marker of success. There are many, many women who have achieved
like
a
Theresa
huge
May.
amount.
Mother Teresa, sorry. Yes.
Exactly. Well, and women in politics, women in culture, women who have really made an impact, whose roles are not recognized, whose achievements are not shouted about. And I think we do need to shout more about it. So I think that's really, really important. But also women in history, to be able to look back and say, well, look, look at what these women did. So I think that's great that we're beginning to have those conversations, but we should do that more. And incidentally, it's quite interesting you say that, because one of the first Montessori nurseries in the UK was actually set up by the suffragettes for women
Wow.
who were going in the East End of London, for women who were going out to work. So Maria Montessori, before she even set up the Montessori education or created the Montessori education, was a proponent of women's rights and spoke at the first International Women's Congress, demanding equal pay for equal work. So it's a little depressing that 100 years later we're still having the same conversation, but in many ways we have achieved a lot, and I think that's fantastic, and I think we should celebrate that. I think women are pretty bad, and I count myself amongst them, at shouting about our own successes. And I think you called me out last time we spoke, where you said, well, because you were asking me about myself, and you said you're being too modest. You haven't talked about all the awards you've won. And I thought, well, actually, that's true. It's not something I naturally talk about, but
Yes.
I think we are just generally very bad at it, and we need to get better at it. It's actually okay for us to sort of say, well, look, we've achieved this, and I think that in a way, those of us who have achieved something in our lives have a responsibility to talk about it, because it is that role modeling for younger women to say, yeah, you can do something, you can achieve something.
Yes. So what would your advice to be to your younger self in regards to your journey?
My advice, I think, would be don't shut up. So, oh, sorry, my dogs are barking. I would say my advice would be don't shut up as many times as you did. Often, I let someone else, mostly a man, speak, and felt I needed to not speak and let them finish, and then ended up not speaking at all. And I thought, actually, yeah, that it's okay to sort of make sure that your voice is heard. It's that's fine, in a
Yes.
respectful way. I mean, I'm not, you don't
Yes.
have to sort of shout and scream, but in a respectful way. So I would say that. And the second thing, and that kind of is aligned to it, is that if you don't have the respect for yourself, then others won't have the respect for you. So I
Yes.
think that's we can call it self-care, we can call it a whole range of things, but I think fundamentally it boils down to, if you don't feel that you have the right to speak, others won't
Yes.
give you that right.
Yes. Never mind the dog.
Sorry, I'm
she,
so sorry about the dogs.
your
I'm so
dog is
sorry.
supporting our arguments here, and
Excitable Labradors.
yes, yes, yes. You talked about the fact that you didn't speak about your accolades, and how, as often as women, we tend not to. Do you think it's because how we've been conditioned to have this psychological thoughts that we as women belong in the kitchen, we belong in the home, and even though we've achieved and we are achieving phenomenal things in the outside world, psychologically our minds are still working from the inside, from the family home.
I think there's an element to that, but I think there's also an element of society and how the media represents women, and we saw it very much with Theresa May, for example,
Yes.
how she was represented in the media, and I do feel that a lot of that reporting was very misogynistic. It was very much, oh well,
Yes.
and I thought, it was very, and particularly I remember when she sort of resigned, tearful, and the comments that were made about that. And I thought, actually, we've seen male leaders cry, and it's seen as, oh, they're showing their caring, sensitive side, but if a
Yes.
woman cries, it's, oh, well, here we are, there we go, and I think so
Yes.
there's an element of that as well, about it's changing. I think the younger generation are sort of looking at it in a different way, but I think that how we represent women in the media and how we represent strong female
Yes.
leadership in the media, I think needs to also change. And I think we need to, as women, actually call for that change. And again, it's, if you ask for something as a woman, it's very, very, it's not taken as seriously as if you ask for it as a man. I think that that's a shame, really, because there's a huge amount of very talented young women out there that have something to
Yes.
say, and I think we should be listening.
Yes. Some might say that we as women have chosen to put ourselves in that position, so we should take it like men, whatever is thrown at us. But what would you say, looking at the, I don't know if you saw the image of when Theresa May was on the front cover of, I believe, Vogue, and then recently Kamala Harris, when she was also on the cover, and there was two covers, and one of them she was not happy with. What was your opinion of those images? What was the first thoughts that came to you?
Well, my friend, again, I'm sure I say what a lot of women said was, why are we talking about their clothes? I'm yet to see, a cover of Joe Biden where we're saying, oh, look, he's wearing the wrong color suit.
Oh yes.
Why is that? I think it shows that we've still got some way to go for it to be about who we are and what we do rather than about how we look and what we wear. And I think that there's an element of that. I think there's also an element of, again, you know, I'm not sort of blaming men. I'm not blaming the media. I think we as women have to think about that as well, and think about, and in fact, actually probably use it as a tool. You know, if we can, I think I read somewhere, and I thought it was really interesting, that Nicola Sturgeon always wears red.
Yes.
And I hadn't noticed that. And then I sort of saw her on TV yesterday, and she was wearing red. And I thought, good for her. You know, that's a color of power. That's a color. She's used that, you know, to make a statement about herself. And I thought, yay, you know, good. You know, that's good. And I think that we should sort of think about that as well as women. So it's an advantage and a disadvantage. And if it's an advantage, let's use it as an advantage. So I think that, you know, personally, Kamala Harris should have complained if she wasn't happy with it, because it's her image, it's how she wants to present herself. And yeah, you know, good for her to say, no, this is who I am, this is how I want to be represented. So
yes, because I think the same can also go for Michelle Obama, where a lot of people are saying perhaps she's a man really and not a woman. So yes, yes. Then to now go to speak about, if there are 5 points where you could advise women, and in lessons you've learned from your own experience in your position, what would those 5 points be?
One of them is define for yourself what success looks like. Don't let others define it for you.
Yes.
So, you know, success can be what is valuable to you. You know, being a successful mother may be what you want to do with your life. That's fine. Define that, you know, don't compare yourself to someone else doing something else and say, oh, therefore, you know, I can't be successful. So I think there's that kind of defining your success for yourself is one thing. Secondly, I would say, you know, don't be afraid to speak out. Don't be afraid. I know that it may result in pushback. It may result in it being really uncomfortable for you, but actually you owe it to yourself, and you also owe it to other women to say, actually, you know, I'm going to step out of my comfort zone and step out if I see something that I feel is important enough for me to speak about. The third I would say is choose your battles. You know, there is no point in, you know, there are some people whose minds you're never going to change.
Yes.
You know,
I can totally agree with that one, because I think at that point in life, yes.
Yeah, there are some people, for whatever reason, it may be lack of education, it may be their own life experience, it may be maybe fear, for whatever reason, you are never going to make them think differently about things. Is it really worth your kind of emotional energy trying to persuade someone to think differently who's never going to sort of, you know, think differently? So there's the third thing. The fourth thing is that life is never linear.
Yes.
And I know this from my own career, but I've spoken to a lot of young women, particularly young women who are starting out in their careers, who feel very concerned if, you know, particularly nowadays, like, oh, if they don't have a job, or it's not the job they want, and, you know, that doesn't really matter. You know, use each job, each experience as a way of building your kind of toolkit of skills and experiences. And I often say this, my first job when I was at school was a Saturday girl at John Lewis.
Oh, wow.
Working behind the counter.
Yes.
And I learned so much about dealing with people from being a Saturday girl working behind a counter at John Lewis, that even today I recognize that some of the skill sets I learned from them I'm still using. Obviously more sophisticated, more nuanced, but they're still there. So
yes.
So, you know, do not worry if your career path doesn't seem to be taking a kind of linear approach. You may be doing different things that you didn't think you'd be doing, but all of those experiences are valuable. And the fifth is, make sure you have a network. the power of network, the power of speaking to other women, the power of sharing experience is. So I would say those are the 5 things.
Wow. Those are very valid points, especially the one you mentioned about life is not linear, because I'm a mother, and we all have all these plans and think we're going to do A to Z, but sometimes it doesn't work out. And I'm finding these days a lot of companies are employing women who've been stay-at-home moms, and because of the many experiences we've had to have as women, and odd jobs and various ways we've had to adapt in order to survive during those gap years of not working the way we wanted to, or where we originally educated to train to be.
Absolutely.
So in that way, I think all those qualities make us and equip us for the high-end jobs that we now occupy.
Absolutely. And that's a confidence thing. I remember speaking to a member of my team many years ago who was a returning mum. And she said, "Oh, I don't know if I can do this job." And I said, "Oh, it was a project manager job." I said, you've been juggling children and house, and you're telling me you can't project manage? What do you think you've been doing for the last 4 years? You've been project managing. You may not recognize it as such, but that's basically what you've been doing. You've managed to get your kids, all of them, to school at different schools at different times, got them up, get them fed, those are real organizational skills. Of course we want you to do this. But she didn't have that. She didn't see it that way. She didn't value that, and she didn't see it, she didn't have the confidence to recognize that actually, if you put a business term to it, being a mother and looking after children, is organizational and project management skills par excellence.
Yes, yes, I really do agree with that. We often don't realize the skills we adapt along the way. Also looking at Hera is a network of women, global women. What has your experience to do with networking being, especially in the circles of being a woman amongst men?
Oh, right. Okay. Well, let me, sorry. Oops. Sorry, back again. I think that absolutely essential. If you're going to spend your time doing anything, spend it on networking, because first of all, you never know when you're going to meet someone who's suddenly going to be someone you need to speak to, someone you need to have in your life. I'm now doing projects with people I met 20 years ago. 20 years ago, we weren't, they were not in a place and I wasn't at a place where we could do anything, but we're now collaborating on projects because now both of our lives have moved on. Having that kind of shared experience really helps, because it makes people, particularly women who are part of networks, understand that they're not the only ones. Often it can be very isolating, and you can sort of forget that actually everyone's going through the same experience, and it's quite helpful. But also I think that and particularly across international networks, the power of having a group of women and men, just sort of share a vision is incredibly powerful. It's what makes things happen. So yeah, any time you can spare to network, go do it. And networks are everywhere. It could be, the network of parents at the school gate. It could be the network of friends. It could be, professional networks. It could be networks online. And be open to things that you may feel actually, I don't know, is that for me? Because you never know, and you can try, and then maybe it's not, and you say, well, sorry, I tried, it's not for me. But sometimes you can find new people, new experiences, and have a, incredibly interesting time just getting to know other people in different walks of life.
Yes. What you've said is actually something that resonates with myself. I'm finding now people I met many years ago. And I think also the importance in that is not just in keeping those contacts, but in keeping good friendships when you do meet people. Even you might not disagree with them, but you can leave that friendship on a good note, because you never know when you're going to need somebody.
World's
And
tiny. World is tiny.
yes, exactly. That's what I'm finding, and especially right now, the world has become a global village because of the pandemic. We're now able to connect with each other with the press of a button. We're on a Zoom call to India, Africa, America, and here I am in the UK. So in that sense, networking is very important too. Whilst for me in the UK we're in lockdown, and for our businesses to move forward, what has how shall I say the pandemic has had an effect on yourself, and your line of work?
Well, we're all working from home, and we're sort of spread across the globe working from home.
Yes.
And actually, that's the advantage, that we can sort of pull upon expertise all over the world, thanks to sort of virtual working. Obviously, what is incredibly concerning to us is that it's affected a lot of nurseries. Many nurseries were struggling beforehand. This has had a very big impact on nurseries. Although nurseries are open at the moment, full capacity. So what do? Because if they don't have full capacity, they're not getting the income that allows them to run, to even break even in many cases. But yet they don't want to close because they don't want to let down those children that they're looking after. So it's a significant problem for us in this early years sector, and it will have an impact on families, because if nurseries close down and parents don't have access to good quality childcare and early education, what are they going to do? It's a very difficult thing. And unfortunately, I think because traditionally most early years, particularly in the UK, most early years is private rather than state maintained, it's somehow not given that importance, I don't think, that it would do. So we hear a lot about schools, and that's great, of course we should, but very little about early years. And actually that's the most crucial time of a child's life. And it is a time when, particularly for young parents, and this was spoken about at the work that the Royal Foundation is doing and the Duchess of Cambridge is doing, it's a very tough time for young people. And often nurseries are that kind of lifeline for them to meet other parents, for them to be able to know that their child's getting an education and allowing them to work. And so it's it's going to be very, very tough to see what happens in the next couple of years.
Thank you. As we round up, it's been lovely to have you here on Hera TV, and would like you, as we round up, to tell our women and those who are watching how they can reach you and how they can connect with you and what your expertise are, so they can connect with you.
Of course. Well, I'm open to being approached by women who have all sorts of interests. It doesn't have to be education. I have a myriad of interests, as many women do. So they can certainly email me. My email's leonor.stjepic@montessori.org.uk. So that's simple, and I'm happy for that to be shared out. And yes, please do contact me. I'm always happy to talk to women. I'm always happy to share experience or expertise with women who are looking for any support. And if I can't help you, I will say I'm sorry, I can't. Or I may be able to sort of suggest someone else. But I'm very, I'm lucky I am where I am because, I had a lot of people help me, and I think it's important, therefore, that I do the same.
Okay, thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.
You too, Mercy. Thank you very much. Thank you for giving me
And,
the opportunity to speak today.
okay, and thank you to our audience for watching.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.